You know what? I never get tired of it. But by the way, I was just reading a really good read. If you guys need a good read,
Yeah. I bet you were. Folks, you welcome to the Rebel's Edge.
Darn right.
Or as it's known, the Comedy Shop North.
Hey, speaking of comedy shops, how's the skiing been? I mean, is it great? Is the snow good? And yeah, it's all good.
There's this one part of it, Pete, that I put out a short video today. I encourage people to check it out. It's on Twitter and Instagram and so forth. But as if, they're not crazy enough, these downhillers and things, they have a tram that goes up to the top of the mountain. And about 2/3 of the way up, there's a stop, but the only people that can get off at the stop are downhillers. And they can get off, and then they climb this winding staircase that goes up from there, so that literally they have a platform, Pete, like maybe 120 feet above the tram.
Yeah.
And then they go straight down for about, I want to say maybe quarter mile straight down. Then they have to make a hard right, and they're making that turn at about 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then an immediate left, and then an immediate right, that kind of stuff. But they are crazy. Check it out.
When you said the top of the mountain or whatever you said, it made me immediately think of Strother Martin. And we have no money going down or up the mountain. When we have the money on the way back, then you can start to sweat.
By the way, you'd like this too, Pete. Right now, they're going crazy on the bell ringing because, we're right at the top of the hour here. It's 7:00 in St. Moritz. And they've got some crazy monk down there just.
Those monks, they can't do a lot of things, but they can drink. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah. And I think the guy they gave, the guy who's got the responsibility tonight is taking full advantage.
It's not a bad life.
No, it works. Folks, we only give you 1 minute of macro here on the Rebel's Edge. We do tell you about monks and about downhillers, but other than that, 1 minute of macro. Pete, I think it's the December CPI up 6.5% year over year. And I sent Jared a chart. I don't know if he can show it or not, but basically the chart, Pete, says that all the food items that are up between 11 and 30%, I think, year over year. Mm-hmm. And everybody that buys food knows that. So it's kind of a sad story for those of us who feel for people that had to do that.
Yeah, those numbers are amazing, John. When I had a chance to look at what you put up there and some of the other numbers as well, there it is. Oh, it was sort of popping around. I think Jared's actually got it, John. But it is amazing when you see some of those numbers because, there are a lot of folks out there. It doesn't mean anything to them. It means a lot to a majority of the people in this country and in the world or whatever to see what some of these numbers really look like. And it is amazing. The last thing I'll say in this macro minute, and we actually went a little bit over, but is this, John. So when we look at those numbers, it's interesting, but the reaction is another thing. And especially the reaction from the Fed themselves, basically saying we're staying the course. So they're staying the course. So be ready for that as well. I know we're having a pretty interesting day today, up about 300 points right this moment, but it's been all over. We've been red, green, back to red, back up again. And for now, we're actually sprinting pretty nice to the upside.
Yep. And you know what else is sprinting nice to the upside, Pete? Despite the fact that early in the pre-market, it was down. Yeah. Because their CEO's walking away and he didn't give them any time. He basically said, yeah, effective immediately, I'm done. So that's Cognizant, CTSH. But it went from being down a couple percent to being up as much as 8%. What do you think of this one?
John, actually, when you look at the fundamentals of this company, they're actually pretty strong, but they obviously had to cut their forecast, and that's a problem. They were talking about their profits being down. The CEO, to your point, long gone. This guy is out. But the good news is, I think that the CEO that they're already ready to start to put in there, John, Ravi Kumar, this guy's actually got a lot of clout that he's going to bring to the company. He already talked about what they're going to do to attack and get themselves into a better position. When you look at the balance sheet, it's great. They've got all the cash in the world, $1.5 billion. They've also got a great free cash flow of about $2.5 billion. So there's a lot of positives to take away from, John. They've just got to have the right CEO. And I'll tell you what, the fact that that guy was walking away and the stock started to come to the upside, I think that says a lot about what they thought of the previous CEO.
Yep, that sure does. That's kind of the opposite of what you'd like to see if you're stepping away as the CEO.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've got a Switzerland-based company, Pete, and they make all these peripherals like a mouse, wireless mice, keyboards, all that kind of stuff. And it's Logitech. And these guys, disappointing Q3 earnings. That's what they basically forecast. And they said net sales are going to be, not so great, especially compared to what they did during the pandemic when everybody was buying peripherals. They're not doing that so much anymore, Pete. It's back to a more normal cadence of buying that stuff. So down 16%. Do you get interested?
Maybe a little bit interested, John, but here's the problem that you run into right now for these guys. PC market, that has turned upside down from where it was. It's really slowed down to an absolute screeching halt. The PC shipments down 28%. So when Gartner reported that. So when we see something like that, it might take a little bit of a time for this thing to start to roll back and be something a little bit more special. But when you look at their Q3, John, and their net sales, they look pretty bad. We're talking about 22 to 23% year over year to the downside. So there are some things they're going to have to catch up with. Will the PC shipments start to come back? They will. But from where we were in the pandemic to where it is right now, it took a little while, but people are starting to see that. There's a little bit of pain. But I do think that fundamentally this is a company that can make a switch. It's just a matter of, I don't think you have to chase it right now and try to buy the bottom. I think you wait until you start to see a little bit of a turn. This stock is down. I saw it last down, John, about 16, 18%.
Yeah. And I am in agreement. I would be buying, Pete, somewhere between 48 and 50. And if 56, where it's trading now, down 16%, ends up being, the tradable bottom, well, more power to you. But I'm going to be patient. I'm not going to pull the trigger quick on this one. Mm-hmm. What about American Airlines? I was surprised, Pete, that they fought against the trend the last couple of days. We all know that there was that, stoppage of air traffic completely. And that screws up everybody. That was the government that shut it down. Pete Buttigieg in the transportation department threw in some bad software, or so they say, Pete.
Yeah.
But American Airlines is up 6% today, up 14 since last Friday. Is this one of the areas you'd focus on?
I think we have to look at this, John, for a variety of reasons. One of which is fuel costs in December were phenomenal for the airlines. They actually got that nice big dip. We all watched the price of crude as it drifted lower. So that was one thing. They raised their earnings as well from 50 to 70 cents all the way up to $1.12 to $1.17, John. I mean, that's damned impressive. It shows you what they're able to do. And they've been able to raise these ticket prices and people are still there. The demand is still there, despite the fact that you might think, you know what, with these prices going up, and you had that in your chart as a matter of fact, but with these prices going up, you'd think, well, shoot, people are going to pull back. They haven't yet. And maybe those put buyers that we talked about earlier in the week, and we talked about, it looked more like a hedge. Well, more and more, it's looking like it was a hedge, John, because they were buying very inexpensive options to the downside in case there was a turn. But it looks like they might have been right on their bets because they were likely buying stock while they were buying those downside puts. We talked about that right here on the Rebel's Edge. It's exactly what it looks like they did. And I'll tell you, these airlines, specifically American, doing extremely well today. Again, it's amazing.
Yep. And I think there's a lot of interesting things going on with the airline sector. And you nailed the biggest one, Pete, which is fuel. And if fuel isn't accelerating, isn't doing what it did last February and March, when it hit 125, and we're a far cry from there right now.
Yeah.
I think this is a good thing for these guys. All right. What about Ubisoft? This one down big today, Pete. These guys make Assassin's Creed. They're a video game maker. And they said because of JP Morgan cut the price target almost in half. This is a French-based company, but apparently people just are not buying what they're selling, Pete.
Yeah, they cut their forecast, John. They were looking for bookings now down 10%, but originally they were looking for about a 10% boost to the upside. So that's a major flip. These are major issues that they're facing. Jared and I were talking about this. He's a gamer, I am not, but we were talking about this, and he was saying, some of these names are interesting, some of them aren't. And I think you kind of gave me a thumbs down on this one, Jared. So I'm following your lead on this one. I don't know what this company is going to do, but they don't seem to be doing things right now. I think you'll wait on this name for a while for sure. There are other names that have gotten beat up, but I think have a better chance on a recovery than this one.
Yep, right there. I'm not even nibbling at this level, Pete.
No.
I'm going to talk a little bit about LILAK because this one hit for our unusual activity, and it's my unusual activity today. Basically, 33,000 January 132 calls were bought, and the stock was trading 133. So in other words, these are in the money by better than $1, Pete, about $1.46 in the money. And they're January, but not this Friday, not January 13th, but next Friday, January 20th. So you've got a little time. When somebody buys that many of an at the money option or just in the money option, that definitely makes the radar go up for any of us that have traded. And I had to jump in here and buy this one, Pete.
I like it, John. And I think, over the last couple of days, here's kind of a backdrop for people just so they understand where we're coming from with some of this. Volumes have exploded, John. Yesterday, we traded over 50 million contracts, option contracts yesterday, each contract the equivalent of 100 shares. So there's a lot to be said for what the volumes really look like. As a matter of fact, we've been averaging about 44 million per day. So 50 million is still a monster number, even with these huge volumes that we've already seen in the month of January, at least the beginnings of January that we're in right now. But yesterday, John, we had monster buying to the upside in Google, in Amazon a couple of times, in Microsoft, in Juniper, in Cisco. But today I saw the name that I was kind of waiting to see, which is Apple. And what did they do? Something you were just talking about, John. They bought 33,000 of the at the money calls, the January 20th, the 132 calls. They were going for $2.10 all the way up a little over $3 for these options. That was with the stock trading at 131 at the beginning of the trade, all the way up to 133.50. That's about where the stock is right now. The stock has been moving a little bit to the upside. We'll see if that continues for the rest of the day. But certainly, it's amazing to see the bulls come back to these technology names, John. They were running away from them for a while. Now we're seeing a big sweep of buyers coming in across all of the names that I just mentioned. The only one that still surprises me a little bit, huge volumes in Tesla, but we aren't seeing the unusual volume that you and I are looking for. Some of those buyers, we're seeing a lot of churn in there right now. But in the rest of the names that I mentioned, buying, looking for upside, and so far they're cashing in. I love this trade in Apple.
Yeah, me too. And we talked about tax loss selling, and most of you understand what that means. You can't get back in for 30 days after you do it. But if you want to recognize a loss in 2022, you have up until the last minute the stock trades in 2022. So a lot of people were selling because the stocks were down. Apple was one of them. And now if they start to move to the upside, especially if they move fast in the first 30 days, people are going to regret taking that tax loss because they can't get back in, like I said, for 30 days. It's called the wash sale rule. All right, Pete, how about a little NFL wild card action since we're now in that season?
Yeah, and you know what? Football's 24/7, 365, John. We already know that. And college football is getting closer and closer to what we see in the NFL as well. So I just thought it would be kind of fun for us to pick, okay, of all of the games in the wild card weekend that we've got a few on Saturday. This one that I'm going to pick is Saturday night, but you've got Sunday, you even got Monday. So which one is the most likely to see the team that's sitting there as the underdog to actually win? I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the reason I'm going to do that, John, is they're playing against the LA Chargers. Great football team. They've had a very, very good year. I look at Jacksonville, though. They are on a roll. In the last 5 games, John, they beat the Titans twice. Now, the Titans in their conference, so the winner was going to be the playoff. That was the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they did everything they needed to do at the end of the year in those final 5 games. They won, and they beat some pretty good football teams. I love what's going on with Trevor. I think Trevor Lawrence is as good a quarterback as almost anybody in the league right now. His kick from Clemson, ETN, the running back, is not just a running back. He's also a great receiving running back as well. And then you've got Christian Kirk on the outside at wide receiver. They've got the offense to be able to do it. Their defense is a little bit suspect, John. They can give up some points, and I think the Chargers will score points on them, but it's a home game. You've got the Buccaneers. They've got a home game. You've got these guys. They've got a home game. And I'll tell you what, I think the Dolphins are just going to get wiped off the planet by Buffalo. They're going all the way up north. That's not going to be fun for the warm weather guys. That's going to be brutal. And Tua's sitting. Tua's not able to suit up and play for the game for injury reasons. So he's not going to be there. That's a problem as well. But I think Jacksonville's got a great shot. Is there anybody you're looking at right now?
Seattle, Pete. And the reason for Seattle is I think when everybody looks at the line, they're going to be tempted to go with San Francisco. And San Francisco could beat them by 10. That's the line right now, I think. 10 points. San Francisco, you want them, you got to give 10, which means 10 and a hook, because obviously on a push, you're not winning given 10. I think overall, Pete, the fact that the 49ers are 8-0 versus the spread in their last 8 games, that's pretty huge. Just like you said, a 10-game win streak, that's monster. But to beat the spread 8 games in a row, you're doing something right. I think a lot of people will look at that and perhaps be sucked in to the idea that San Francisco can't lose. They're going to beat these guys easy. Green Bay had to lose for these guys to make it in. Detroit had to win. Otherwise, Seattle wouldn't be there. It would have been Green Bay. But I think overall, Seattle has a lot to play for. They're going against one of the best defenses. We both have talked about that. You know it better than I do, that the offense is also awesome for San Francisco. But again, all that means that they're they're not the underdog. Obviously, Seattle is the big underdog in this one. But I think they, with a little bit of luck, they call it a football because of that oblong sort of shape and things, Pete. Balls bounce funny sometimes.
They do.
And that could work in Seattle's favor if it goes their way.
I think that's a great call. Even though San Francisco is unbelievable, anybody can win every Sunday. We know that, any given Sunday. So Seattle being a huge underdog, but you know what? That's a rivalry game as well on top of everything else. They're sitting in the same division. All right. Last thing I've got for you, John, is this. The Chicago Bears. It's right in your backyard. I mean, we're talking about the Bears. We're also talking about a guy. Kevin Warren is a really interesting cat. I've known this guy for a while. He was the president at the Minnesota Vikings from 2005 to 2019. He was the CEO. He was the executive vice president, rather. And then he went over and he became the head of the Big Ten. I mean, he was the commissioner for the Big Ten. Unbelievable position back in Chicago. He decided to take that. But you know what he's doing now? It looks like the Chicago Bears want to bring him in, John, to the franchise. He's going to be replacing Ted Phillips, who's been there for the last 40 years with the Chicago Bears. Here's what makes this move so interesting. And I throw this out to you because I think it's the right move. And here's why I think you're going to agree with me that it's a good move. Kevin Warren was there when they were building US Bank Stadium for the Minnesota Vikings. What's going on in Chicago? Well, they ain't going to be on the lake anymore, man. They're going up to Arlington, and they're going to make a big splash up there, and they're going to do a lot of different things just like the Vikings did, including the fact that they want to build a dome stadium up there, John. So the combination of all of that tells me Kevin Warren's the perfect fit for this whole thing. I already spoke to him earlier today and just said, congratulations. You're the right guy. Do you think he's the right guy, though? I don't live in Chicago. You do. Are they doing the right thing? Should the Bears stay in Soldier Field? I mean, there's a lot of people who want them to stay there. I'm with you. I don't think they should be there.
They shouldn't have redone Soldier Field, Pete. Right. I mean, it was built to honor the soldiers. That's why it's called Soldier Field, folks. And they should have just left it or torn it down. If they chose to tear it down, obviously you'd still have to honor the soldiers with something. But I think overall it was a waste of $700 million a couple decades ago. And now they're going to put up, what everybody does, a multi-billion-dollar stadium. Great for them, great for Arlington. I just wanted to say quickly, Pete, that if the Bears trade down, I might never watch them again because, there's rumors out there that they're going to trade down and either take the Ohio State quarterback or they're going to take a quarterback who's a little smaller, Bryce. And I wish both those quarterbacks well, but Fields is better than both of them. And he's big. Stroud is about the same size as you said, but I would say go after that big, guard at Georgia. Go after the big tackle up at Northwestern. Go get some big boys to block for Fields, and he'll be the man. But if you're just having a jailbreak every day, it doesn't matter if you draft a Heisman winner, like Bryce, or if you go after Stroud. It won't make a difference because if it's a jailbreak, they'll be just like Fields. But I think Fields could do it if you give him the line.
I agree with you, John. I think in the position they are, the only thing I would say is this. If you could trade down and get a couple of offensive linemen to help this guy out, Fields, I think that would be the route I'd maybe at least consider that, because we know everybody's kind of scrambling. They want these quarterbacks. There's at least 2 in the top 5 picks for sure, maybe more actually, but we'll see how it all pans out. But because of that, you could be able to maybe trade down, John, to somebody who really wants to move up there to get a Bryce Young or CJ. So I think that would be maybe not the worst route to take. Get a big offensive lineman from Northwestern, Ohio State, or wherever you deem in the top 10 or something like that. Because quite frankly, John, I think you could maybe slide down about 6-8 positions and still get those offensive linemen that Fields needs. And that would build the Chicago Bears that much better, that much faster.
Well, I sure hope they're listening, Pete, because we need it. Folks, you've been listening to Pete Najarian. He will also be on, as usual, on the Sports Huddle on Sunday on WCCO Radio. 2-hour show, goes from 10 till noon every Sunday. Make sure you tune in for that. You can pick it up on Odyssey or on WCCO AM 830. And Pete and I will be back Monday with another Rebel's Edge. See you then.